Appearing to blow up school children in front of their classmates is an unlikely way of trying to convince people to reduce pollution. But when British eco-campaigners try to put comedy into cutting carbon, it seems the joke backfired badly. It's tongue-in-cheek, but some of these scenes you will find quite gory, must warn you. The short film, scripted by the British writer behind 4 Weddings and a Funeral, led to complaints that it was sick and needlessly violent. Now, it was created on behalf of the 10-10 environmental campaign to spur people into reducing their carbon emissions by 10%. But they're coming up in a minute. Its bloody images made it one of the most short-lived ad campaigns. It was pulled from cinemas just hours after being released. The charity ActionAid, which originally backed the idea, said it was absolutely appalled. But Richard Curtis, the creator, said that when you try to be funny on a serious subject, it's obviously risky. OK, let's see what environmentalist Piers Corbyn thinks about this. We've just been watching the pictures while I've been talking. They're showing to our viewers. Guess it depends how you look at it, isn't it? Some people might look at it and say, well, you know, that was obviously not happening. It was all meant in some sort of comedy form. Shock tactics they are. They work for other causes. Have you got a problem with that?
Well, it's utterly disgusting. Now, look, suppose these images were directed against any ethnic or religious minority, like black people, gays or Jews, then there would be absolute international uproar. In fact, this man Curtis wouldn't have even thought of making a film. But somehow he thinks he can get away with it by attacking the children of people or people who happen to disbelieve in their fraudulent science and want evidence-based science. I mean, it is utterly unacceptable. They are arrogant, malevolent and dangerous people, and they have to be stopped.
OK, there's been an apology. It was pulled almost immediately. It was shown in very few places, this advert. For many, though, let's just look at the broader picture. How do you get the message across? What do the ad men do? The climate change issue is
the message
very easily ignored.
Okay.
How do you get the message across?
Well, the message is a lie. Yeah, but the message is a lie. They can only get it across by this sort of nonsense. I mean, you see, those people are facing cuts like everyone else, and sooner or later the public is going to get it clear that they, in Britain, for example, you could save 18 billion a year by cutting the green nonsense, and that means you wouldn't have to do any of these cuts in welfare. The fact is, there's failed science and fraudulent data behind them, so they've got no defence other than this emotional blackmail, hysteria and lies, and they have to be stopped. And the United Nations IPCC should be closed down.
This film, as I said, was pulled quickly, but we're, of course, living in a YouTube world, so millions can see it now anyway.
Well, of course, everyone can still see it.
Yeah, but the 10-10 campaign's actually got what it wanted at the end of the day. Does that upset you? I know what your answer's going to be, but I'll put it to you again.
Look, OK, no, I think it is disgusting that they can even think of this. Because, as I said, if it was directed against other minorities, it wouldn't even have been thought of. We have to think about why they're in this corner. The reason why they're in this corner and doing these desperate things to get attention is because their own movement is failing. It's losing support, it's based on failed science and false data. And what we have to do is, as I said, get rid of the IPCC, and instead the UN ought to have an international body of a task force to deal with extreme weather situations, which we can now forecast using solar activity, and forget about the hype and nonsense which comes out of the CO2
One final question.
and get rid of all this gravy train on the back of it. So you get a gravy train in a desperate attempt to defend their position.
But we all know the facts, we all know the problems with climate change, but how do you get that
climate
across to the
change
average person at home?
Look, I'm not interested in helping liars and fraudsters. Climate change is natural. Extreme events in climate change are caused by the sun. Right? It's nothing to do with CO2. There's no connection between carbon dioxide and climate, and you can look at the data and see that no correlation at all for hundreds of years, thousands of years, or indeed millions of years. The relationship is with the sun and sun-lunar modulations, with which we predicted, for example, the Russian heat wave in the summer, and when it would end, and when the floods in Pakistan would end as well.
All right, well, Piers Corbyn, it's always a pleasure to have you in the programme.
We need science,
and hear your
nonsense.
views. Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for telling us about that, Piers Corbyn. Much appreciated.